Thanks, Celine, and thanks for joining everyone. As Celine says, I'm Head of Commercial at VoiceMap. We're pleased to meet you all if I haven't met you already. So today, before speaking with Becky, we're going to talk about the new Commission This Publisher functionality, how it works, what's in it for you. After speaking with Becky, we'll talk about licensing tours, group purchase. Helene's going to talk to you about new publisher page functionality, and then we'll leave time for any Q&A at the end. So firstly, what is Commission This Publisher? It's a feature that lets attractions, hotels, and other organizations request custom tours directly from you. So an example might be a hotel or attraction wants to offer guests something unique without building it themselves. So what they're doing is they're leveraging your expertise as an existing VoiceMap publisher. How it works is that a hotel or attraction will contact VoiceMap via the commissioning form on the publisher page, and you can turn this on and off. It's off by default, so you need to enable it. Helene will cover that later. VoiceMap then validates the request and connects you with the commissioner. So when we get an inquiry, we'll just make sure it's a genuine attraction or hotel. You and then the commissioner will then agree on the scope, price, and licensing terms. So we'll introduce you to the commissioner, and then you sort the commercials between yourself. We're not involved in that step. The production agreement is between you and the commissioner, and you are also paid directly by the commissioner. You then create or adapt a tour to their brief, and VoiceMap will bill the commissioner for an annual plan. So our only requirement from VoiceMap's perspective is that the commissioner goes on an annual plan. The plan will vary depending on their need, whether it's a free tour or a paid tour, but that's the only thing we will bill the commissioner for. As I said earlier, the publishing agreement is directly between you and the commissioner. So how does it look? Some of you may have enabled this already. It's a very simple publisher form on your publisher profile page. By clicking that, it brings up the commissioner tour form. Very simple form, just email, name, and a little bit about what the commissioner is looking to achieve. As I mentioned, VoiceMap will receive that. We'll validate it, just make sure it's from a genuine hotel or attraction, and then we will introduce you to the commissioner and you sort the terms between yourselves. So what's in it for you? And you can negotiate an upfront fee. So you would negotiate your own rate for commissioning the work. You could potentially negotiate ongoing royalties or a license fee. So it could be on every sale, or it could be a flat fee on an annual basis, or you could just charge up front and have it as an effective buyout. Also adds to your portfolio, so adds tours in new locations. It could sit under your publisher profile, it could sit under the commissioners. Offers the opportunity for repeat business, so one successful project can obviously lead to more. And as I mentioned earlier, the only requirements from our side is that each commission tour must be in an annual paid plan, and we will bill the commissioner directly. So I think there's two elements to this. So one, we are launching the this functionality now for any inbound inquiries. So basically, if a hotel or attraction manager was to enjoy one of your tours, they could find your publisher profile, they could complete the form and send an inbound request to us, and we will forward that to you. But secondly, on top of that, we also encourage you to be proactive to your local attractions and hotels about commissioning tours for them. So we're going to hear from Becky in a second, and that's exactly what she did. She reached out to local attractions to her, pitched her producing a VoiceMap tour. We weren't involved in that process. She was going out and being proactive and commissioning and pitching herself. Of course, we will then be involved with the hosting and publication of that tour. But in this case, Becky was proactive. So in addition to getting the inbound requests from the website, we encourage you to be proactive with your local community, because of course, your area the best. You know what local hotels and attractions are going to be most interested in a tour. So with that, I'm going to introduce Becky. We'll spend 10 or 15 minutes going through questions with Becky, and as I thought, rather than us explaining it just from our side, it's a valuable exercise to hear from Becky and her experience. So yeah, welcome, Becky. Can we hear Becky?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah. How are you doing?
I had it turned off.
That's all right. No problem. We're here. We're here now. So, hi, Becky. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into making VoiceMap tours, please?
Yeah, sure. So I actually ran in-person tours around Cornwall. So I used to drive people around in my van all day, which felt like all year, pulling about 30,000 miles a year, which was tiring, I'm not going to lie. So I moved into the audio tours after a trip to Rome with my son. So we did a couple of in-person tours. He's got ADD, and I've got something called APD, audio processing disorder. I call it audio dyslexia. It's too much going in at once, and I kind of shut down. So we did an in-person tour in Rome, and it was just too much. We left within 20 minutes. It was just too much for both of us. So at the Vatican City, we did an audio tour. I was there for about 5.5 hours. My son managed about 3, which was huge. Like, he'd never sort of concentrated for that long, I don't think, ever. And it was a kind of a light bulb moment for me. And I was like, it's a £5, it's accessible. And, Cornwall at that time just wasn't doing it. We hardly had any audio tours down here, whether it be attractions or just local towns and stuff. So it was definitely a bit of a light bulb moment, and I kind of tested it with a few of my local towns, got a couple of tours out. I think that was 2024. And then, it's kind of snowballed from there, really. To finally kind of hitting I want to be commissioned to do this.
Great. And just to pick up on the accessibility element, I think that's something that you are actively sort of raising in your conversations with potential commissioners. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So, for instance, if we talk about like financial accessibility, my tours were £450. So it was people on holiday who could afford it. And, by offering the same tour, I'm working on a driving one at the moment, which is exactly the same as my old in-person tours. And it's, it'll be £12. So it makes it so much more accessible financially. And then you have, sort of the neurodiverse people that they want to explore, but maybe though that kind of, there's too much going on, there's too much noise, it's too many people, too many voices. Whereas when you have your audio, you're locked in. You can just concentrate on what you're hearing, with no sort of external influence. So I'm kind of like really sort of looking at that with inclusivity as well, throughout the different attractions, and sort of just raising a little bit of awareness that it's not just an add-on. Actually, it should be part of the infrastructure. When we're talking about inclusivity and accessibility, I think it's really important.
Great. And to focus on the Truro Cathedral tour, so as I mentioned at the top, you have been commissioned by Truro Cathedral to create a tour, and that's now published. Can you tell us how that commission came about? Did they approach you, or did you reach out to them? How did that? Oh
no, I spammed everyone. So I created a pitch deck with who I was, what I was offering, and I sent it out. I think originally I sent it out to about 30 different attractions in Cornwall. So I wanted to concentrate on Cornwall first. I didn't hear anything from anyone for a couple of months, and then I had this amazing email from English Heritage that they were interested and that she was going to take it to the board. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, like if I get in with English Heritage, this will be amazing. And then I heard nothing from anyone for about 9 months. And then again, I had an email back from Truro Cathedral, so saying, actually, we'd really like to do this now. We've been really busy, but we'd like to commission you. So it was just out the blue, randomly in September last year. And I'd kind of thought that all of my spamming of pitch decks hadn't worked, and and then Truro Cathedral contacted me. So it was a little bit of both. Yeah.
And how did you get those contacts in the first place?
Lots of research. So try, you know, when you kind of research these places and you end up with an inquiries at email address, I was like, that they're just going to delete it, you know, or not pass it to somebody. So picking up the phone, speaking to people, you know, who's your visitor experience manager? You know, would it be okay to have their email address? Most people are really lovely in sort of, you know, giving those details out. Once they know that you're not you know, any sort of, I don't really know what the right word is. Once they know you're legit, that you are who you say you are, they're quite happy to do that. So yeah, so it's just initialize it. It's trying to initialize contact. For me, was the hardest bit. You know, you can spam all the emails you want, you know, unless you actually speak to somebody. It was
Yeah, I mean, I certainly find that, like, my role obviously as head of commercial, I'm speaking with new publishers all the time, and from my experience, again, you know, if you email a generic email address, you're unlikely to get a response. So, you know, I'd encourage everyone to look to see if they can find individual contacts where possible. LinkedIn might also be like a good resource for finding those contacts, and you can message people from there. Becky, was it, so visitor experience manager was generally the job title of the person that was sort of your
depending on the attraction? Yeah, so you know, most places in museums and things like that now have like visitor experience managers. There was a couple of sort of, you know, inclusion officers as well that I emailed, having a conversation with a couple of people now in that role. But you know, different organizations have different ways of organizing their management. So for instance, Truro Cathedral was actually the operations manager who I dealt with, because they didn't have a visitor experience or anything much else really to talk about it with me. So
and what sort of visitor numbers does Truro Cathedral get?
So they get about 200,000 a year, but that's not necessarily visitors. So obviously they do, you know, they have sermons and, you know, things going on throughout the week where they get return local people. So as much as we've seen quite a lot of locals buying the tour over the last couple of weeks, we won't hit that sort of core visitor numbers until the springtime, really.
So people are paying for a entrance ticket and then they're paying for the tour on top, is that right?
No, so our cathedral's free. Our cathedral's free to enter. So we decided that we did a bit of research, and I think the last webinar actually helped a little bit with some people that were worried about this, because they, you know, they rely on donations rather than entry tickets. And a lot of people were saying, you know, if they're buying a tour, they're not going to donate. And actually we did a little bit of research and worked out that when people really feel connected with the place, they're actually more likely to donate rather than, you know, so they would buy the tour and donate, and they're more likely to do that than to not pay anything at all. So yeah, we kind of put some minds at rest, because there was a few barriers put up along the way throughout the cathedral experience.
Yep, understood. So once you'd established the relevant contact, what was the next process like? What was the brief? Did they have an idea of what they wanted to achieve, or was that sort of coming from you?
They had no idea at all what they wanted. So what I did, I tried to structure it so that we had deadlines. That it didn't work out. I learned quite a lot from doing the tour with those guys, is to be kind of strict with deadlines. So the process, we kind of went back and forth a little bit on the contract. So everybody knew where they were on how much I was going to charge, you know, going forward, how would I manage it, feedback, that sort of thing. So the contract was really important. And then I did a walkthrough with their volunteer guides to try and get an idea of the different voices, you know, the different little stories that tour guides tell. You can all have the same facts, but you tell them in different ways. So I tried to pick that up from the volunteers. And kind of get their must-haves in there, and then the route and that sort of thing. And then I went away and I wrote the script, and I really was left to my own devices at that point. And then once the script, the first edit was complete, that's kind of when I let too many people get involved, if I'm honest. So rather than, you know, in my commission fee, we'd have a half day to sit and red pen the script, basically. That went on for about 3 weeks, and we had the half day meeting, and then it was kind of like it would just go back and forth, and at one point they would be moving commas. And I've definitely learned that you kind of have to be a little bit more direct and sort of say, this is a script, I will be talking this, so it's not a document that is going to be published in a newspaper or something. So I've definitely learned a lot from that. But we did a soft launch as well. So once the script was nailed down and we'd done the audio, we did a soft launch with just some friends of the cathedral. So we tested it out, and there was actually a couple of little bits that people picked up on, and we did a very small edits after that, which was really helpful actually. To make sure people the demographic of people that go to the cathedral as well, maybe slightly older, not quite used to smartphones as much. So it was actually really good to test how people went through the process, and actually everyone found it really quite easy. So great. I was quite pleased with that.
And I'm sure as many people on the call know, our demographic is slightly at the older end, and we don't generally see that as people having problems. They're generally able to use the app. We do have some materials that we can offer to users that just breaks it down in even more detail for those that might not be familiar with the smartphones. But that's an interesting point. So after doing the tours with the volunteer guides, do you have to do much additional research yourself, or is it you're already familiar with the cathedral?
I was already familiar with the cathedral. I mean, I grew up in Truro, so I kind of knew little bits about it. I'd also done a tour of Truro, so included the cathedral, the outside of the cathedral in that tour. So I'd already done a lot of research. But actually, when you're in there and you notice all the other little things that you don't notice when you go in for an event or something, so it was really interesting to learn about the people, mainly for me. So it's lovely to talk about the structure in the building because it is beautiful, but the people who made it happen for me, the little stories, for instance, it was 20,000 Cornish people made that the cathedral able to happen, some of them only giving a penny a week. So it was little stories like that really kind of sparked my interest more than the building itself.
And so you mentioned the sort of not necessarily challenges, but maybe unexpected issues with having additional people involved in the script, and that was a learning. Was there anything else that you found that was sort of trickier than expected?
I think in this particular case, obviously I wouldn't expect it to be in every case, was the fact that it was a religious establishment, so very traditional in the way they work things. So there were a couple of little things that I wanted to include, with my Celtic heritage and the cathedral being Cornish. I wanted to include a few things. They had a Celtic cross in there, for instance. I was very much not allowed to do that. Okay. So there were parts where it was not a battle, but it was kind of like, this is interesting, this is human to people. And they were a little like, we can't have any reference to paganism, of course. So which is fair enough. And I worked with them. I pushed a little bit. I always made sure that I was heard. But then the dean's word was final at the end of the day, which was absolutely fine.
And were there any other differences between creating this tour as a commission versus creating your own tours? Because I think you've got at least 6 tours on the platform now that you've created for yourself. So what were the main differences between when you're creating a tour for yourself versus a commission, in addition to the sort of collaborative nature of it?
2 main things. I think the one thing for me is when I do my tours, I can be completely myself. I can say opinions, as much as I back things up with fact and always fact check stuff. There are little bits that you put in that you are your own, whereas my Cornish heritage, my tours are very Cornish in nature, and I felt like I had to be more English when I did the cathedral tour. I had to remember that it was a different it's a totally different brief from doing my coastal tours that I normally do. So I suppose I felt like I was being more professional, having to be more not more factual, that's the wrong way of putting it, but I was talking about actual artifacts rather than sort of walking through a coastal town. So yeah, I had to change the way I expressed myself. Yeah, more the masses than me chatting away to somebody. That's what I feel like when I do my tours.
Great. And to touch on the commercials, without showing exact figures, can you talk us through how you structured the deal in terms of like upfront fee, ongoing royalties, licensing? I know that's something that we've discussed ourselves recently. So yeah, would be keen to hear more on that.
Yeah, sure. So I charged an upfront fee. So I broke it down right from the beginning. So I almost kind of broke it down to a daily rate, and then worked out roughly how long an hour's tour has cost me in time to do my own tours. So I costed that all out. I put in a photographer rather than just sort of going around with my phone, making it a little bit more professional. So I came up with a figure. It wasn't necessarily negotiable, but I've sort of said, going forward that, if you're going to commission one tour, this is the set price. If you're going to commission 3 tours, we'll talk about a sliding scale, to make sure that I'm being competitive as well. And then, so with the cathedral, I did a profit share scheme. So I have the VoiceMap account. So it's on my account. And then, if we go over my vouchers, I buy them up front, and then I bill the cathedral monthly. So I did a 75% to 25% profit share on the net. Obviously, take VoiceMap's voucher codes off the top. Which, it looks like if we hit the goals that I want to hit, it would be quite lucrative for both of us, which is a good share. And for that, I manage it going forward. So I look at feedback, anything that needs to be changed. If we've got feedback saying, oh, this didn't work or that didn't work, I can keep an eye on things. But actually, as you mentioned, I'm looking at going forward at an annual license fee. And it takes away all of that paperwork and the upfront cost. So I would still charge my commission fee, but then the attraction have the annual account with you guys. And that takes away all of the financial pressure at the beginning. So I wouldn't have anything to do with that. So then they would, pay me an annual license fee, and that would be upfront 12 months in advance, in advance of the 12 months. And I've done some sums and kind of worked it out on footfall, percentage of footfall, expected take up, done kind of a formula on that basis. And actually I really like, so we had a chat the other day, didn't we, Tom, about, maybe a clause in my contract for a right to buy at the end of it. So if I did a 3-year contract, for instance, that the attraction could then look at buying the tour and the IP rights from me and carry it on.
Yeah, and I think for the group, like the key takeaway there is, I mean, Becky was one of the first to work on this model where she was commissioned to do a tour. I think through that experience, as Becky has just mentioned, we've sort of found it cleaner to separate the production agreement, which is between the publisher and the commissioner, and the purchase of a plan, and then we can own the VoiceMap can bill the publisher, the commissioner directly for the plan and any credits that they use, and then that sort of removes the middleman. So Becky and you guys can still obviously profit through your initial fee and any ongoing fees, but just separating the plan and the credits, and we bill the commissioner directly. I think that's like the cleaner approach.
It actually makes it cheaper for the attraction as well, because if say I had 3 commissions, I wish, and if I was on the premium plan and had 5,000 vouchers, if they all got used up within the first however many months, the vouchers then, how do you separate that across different attractions? So each having their own, they all get their 5,000 credits if they're on the premium plan.
Great. And just finally, we'll wrap up. There's a bit more that Helene and I would like to cover, and then we'll come to Q&A. I know that people have submitted a lot of questions, so we want to leave time for that. But just finally, Becky, what advice would you give to a publisher thinking about taking on their first commission?
Go for it. put yourself out there. You know, when I first started, I had major sort of imposter syndrome, you know, like, you know, I used to poodle around in my van around Cornwall, and now I'm talking about, you know, museum artifacts from Breton, from whatever century, you know. But yeah, definitely sort of, you know, and I think that it's needed in certain places, especially the UK. We do need to catch up with Europe. You know, anywhere in Europe, these audio tours at attractions are, you know, they're the norm. So I'm thinking, you know, I think here in the UK we charge a lot to come on holiday here. So let's make it a little bit more inclusive and accessible to everybody. But yeah.
I think, yeah, thank you so much, Becky. That's been really insightful. And Becky will, of course, stay around to the end of the call, because I'm sure you'll have questions for her directly as well. So just as I mentioned, I'm going to share my screen again and just cover a couple of final bits before we go to the Q&A. The other opportunities I wanted to highlight were, one, licensing tours. So we've talked about commissioning tours, but instead of commissioning a tour, a hotel may be interested in licensing one of your existing tours. You could customize an existing tour to start at their hotel. So change the start location to the entrance of the hotel. You could add a custom intro. So e.g. this tour is brought to you by hotel name, and you could charge them for doing that. The general commercial model that we've worked on this basis is that VoiceMap charges the hotel a fixed monthly fee that we would agree in collaboration with you for the hotel to offer their tour to their guests for free. So generally, you know, hotels wouldn't be charging their guests for it. It would be a value add and something nice to offer their guests. So we in general, we charge the hotel a monthly licensing fee with a minimum 12 months commitment. And within that, you know, if we're talking $100 a month plus, depending on volume, that obviously, you know, then covers your time in just recording a custom intro and maybe tweaking the start of the tour to start at the hotel. So that's something that we also wanted to highlight as an opportunity. Again, we may get inbound requests through the publisher page, and we've also got a link on the tour pages for licensing tours. So that's one route. But again, I think, you know, the most value is going to come from you reaching out to local hotels in your area and seeing if this is of interest. So it might be that they are interested in commissioning a completely new tour purely for them. It might be that they are happy to leverage your existing tours and just customize it for them for that purpose. So that was one additional opportunity that we wanted to highlight. The second one is group purchase. So groups can purchase your tour at a discount. This is already live on all your tour pages. It says there's a button that says buy for a group. These are the discounts that are offered. They're calculated automatically depending on volume. The user can go ahead and purchase via credit card on the website. They don't need to contact us. It's all fully automated. And then they will be sent a redemption code, which is good for however many quantity that they've purchased. Again, we may well get inbound requests from on the tour pages, but we recommend that you also reach out to local groups. So for example, it might be local history groups, might be travel agencies, it might be schools and universities. Obviously depends on, you know, the subject of the tour. You know the local market best, you know who might be interested in purchasing the tour. And this is something that's fully automated and you can go ahead and start promoting today. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass over to Helene, who's going to talk about new publisher profiles. Do you need me to stop sharing, Helene?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So most of you will have received an email from, let me just pin myself. Most of you will have received an email from your editor or from myself this week, in which we say updating your publisher profile is the best thing you can do for your tours right now. One of the main reasons for that is that a lot of listeners find VoiceMap for the first time online. So because Google search has changed a little bit and the algorithm has changed, especially with the AI snippets, Google is focusing specifically on what it calls EAT, which is experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So you already have that. You just need to show it. And the publisher profiles is where you go to show that. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this already, but I just want to share an example. And Ken, I hope you don't mind, I'm sharing yours as an example. Let me see. There we go. I'm sharing yours as an example because I really liked your bio that you wrote. So the main thing that you'll see that is different at the top here is that we now show your number of tours, as well as your ratings, as well as your average rating. Then here you'll also find your tagline that you can add, as well as your location. So the tagline is kind of your short descriptor, your selling point, where the location is what connects you to your tours, the location of your tours. We've also added up to 15 new links. When you add a link, please make sure that it's the correct link. Especially you can see, there's Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Don't just go and add different links to the different options, because it will display here, as you can see, the LinkedIn icon, and when somebody clicks on that, they should be able to get to your LinkedIn page. One of the things that we recommend is to make sure that your bio is 150 words or more. This is because that makes it easier for Google to index it. And when somebody searches for you, your bio will pop up in the search. The other thing that we recommend that you add are the credentials. You can see there's a long list of options for credentials to add. Please make sure, and I'll show you now, to keep these short. And also, stick to who you are as a person. I saw one today by, who was it, Max Hill, who said they are a karaoke performer extraordinaire. So it's good to add a little bit more about yourself and your personality as well. And then it's also here where this commission this publisher link will appear. So I'm just going to show you quickly how you can go and update your profile. So this example is my example. Since I'm not a publisher, I don't have a lot, but you can go here to edit profile, and that will take you to the page where you can edit your profile. You can also select different languages. So if you offer tours in different languages, you can write a bio in that language. You'll see here that it shows the word count. Mine says that I have 87 words, which is not enough. So I will then have to go and add a little bit more to make sure it's 150. Please make sure not to add any links in your bio, because we don't include links here. The links should all go on top. And then you can save, and I just want to show you the credentials as well. The credentials have some really great examples. We include awards, publications and shows, education, certifications, professional association, achievements. When you do add them, and you'll see here is my example. Just want to make sure yes. When you do add them, please make sure that you add them one at a time. So you'll see mine here. I have 3, but I've added them all together. So I'm just going to click save and add another. So then when I do this, instead of having them all under one, when I have them 3 as 3 different ones, just click save. I'll show you now. You can actually go to the top and preview your profile. You'll see that they each pop up as one bullet point. So those are the main things that I've realized looking at updates to publisher profiles. If you have any questions, you're welcome to, and I'll share this now in the chat with you. You're welcome to reach out to your publisher, to your editor, or to myself. or you can check out the 2 links I'm sharing in the chat. The first is to our documentation, and the second one is to our forum, where you can pop your questions. And that's it from me.
Thanks, Helene. So we've got about 20 minutes left to answer some questions. Helene, how do you want to do this? Do you want to read out, select and read out some questions?
So we had a couple of questions for Becky that I just want to read out, and then we can open the floor. The first one was from Roberta, who's saying, Becky, do you mind telling a bit more about your pitching email? What did you include?
So I actually used Canva to do my pitch deck. So I included, I went straight in with the commissioning side of things, how much it was going to cost people, what they were going to get for their money, because you can be all fluffy and, you know, I'm experienced and I'm this and I'm that. People want to know straight away. It's like when you send an email, you know, first 2 lines, you've got to say what you need to say. So I went straight in with what they were going to get for the commissioning fee. So I kind of listed how much time it's expected to take an hour's tour, how that process would work, and how much it was going to cost them. Also adding in there that we can put in, you know, we have different languages available, but I always used to asterisk that as extra, because otherwise people, you know, think it's going to be included in the commission fee. Lots of, you know, I did with the pitch deck, I did, you know, lots of lovely photos of glorious sunshine down here in Cornwall, which we haven't seen in a while. And then kind of went into the more the deeper side of stuff, so accessibility, enhanced reward for visitors, and how it worked out a lot, you know, how much money they were going to make if they were going to charge £5 per tour based on their footfall. I actually gave examples of actual attractions, so I used some of the attractions around where I live, and how many, you know, what the footfall they get every year, you know, charging that at £5, how much they were going to make. You know, a lot of people, as much as a lot of places want to enhance visitor experience and include it on entry, a lot of them are looking, you know, to actually, you know, make some money out of it as well. So I kind of used a little bit of both. Very much hit the kind of accessibility and inclusivity side of stuff, so that, you know, you're kind of, you know, it's such a tick box exercise sometimes. So, you know, I was just trying to make sure that everything was covered. I kept my pitch deck under 10 pages, so that you don't bore people, and then included some real life reviews from my VoiceMap tours and from my in-person tours as well. And then the email that I sent to them, I kind of centered it around my localism, you know, a local voice doing local projects. For instance, the guys that I'm trying to get at the moment, I'm literally living in their inbox. My father was in their museum. So I'm kind of taking that pitch with them as, you know, how can you not commission me? But yeah, so I didn't just send a generic email to 30 different attractions. I made sure that I had like a generic backbone, and then made each email specific to who I was trying to talk to.
Okay, great. There is a comment from Annette. She's just saying, my advice is to not give them too many details of content or stops, as they will just take it and commission someone else. Protect your IP and make them curious, which I think is quite useful.
Yeah, I did in my initial pitch, actually, I didn't even know I was using VoiceMap. Because, you know, again, you do have that worry that they can go and do it themselves. But actually, I've kind of got over that now. People don't want to do it themselves. They don't have time.
Yeah, so exactly. A lot of the times when we speak to like big attractions, like, they don't necessarily have the time to do it. And that's why we want to get more of our own publishers involved. There was another question from Annette, and that is if, Becky, if your name is attached to the tour, or if it's just the cathedrals.
So this one is actually on my account. So my name is, you know, is definitely attached. So when I introduced the tour with the Truro Cathedral, I actually mentioned all three of us. So Truro Cathedral, myself, Becky Frost at Penleigh Tours, and VoiceMap. And then at the end as well, kind of thank everybody from all three of us. So I've made sure in the tours that I do get a mention, so that going forward, you know, people, you know, there's another attraction out there, goes and tests it, you know, and they hear my name, you know. So that would be something that might change going forward if it's the attractions account, as much as, you know, you can say your name. I don't know whether I would put Penleigh Tours in there, because it would be, you know, their account. Might change things slightly, but yeah, no, I mean, part of the reason why the Truro Cathedral one is doing fairly well, we've got some lovely reviews already, is that I've included myself in it. You know, it's not just a monotone, this is from 19th century sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's also what we're finding, is especially with this shift to AI, is people don't want the monotone, they want, you know, the real stories and the people who tell them. So there's one more question in the chat for you, Becky, which is, what are some of your lessons learned about writing a contract? I know you've touched on this before, but maybe what would you do differently in the next one?
There are certain things that I would definitely do. So I'd write into the contract things like, if they have an expert that lives and works on site, that they have to share them with you. So I found out towards the, you know, I thought I'd finished the script, and all of a sudden they were like, oh, we're just going to pass it through, I don't know, I can't remember what her name was now, Judy. And she came back with so much more knowledge than I'd ever expected anybody to hold in their head. So I definitely write into a contract nowadays that they have to make things available. So if they've got any itineraries, inventories of artifacts, that would be helpful. Which again, the Truro Cathedral had, they just didn't make it available to me. So, you know, but I didn't ask the question. So learning things like that. So if they've got an in-house expert, if they've got inventories, definitely write that into contracts that they, you know, should make that available. I think, you know, the financial side of stuff I tied up quite well, and the IP, that was all quite well done in the contract. But I think going forward, having that release clause as well, so then the right to buy it, I think that would be a good thing to have in the contract. Not as a definite, as in, you know, like, it's great passive income if it continues going forward. But, you know, it also adds to your admin and your work. So actually, you know, having that right to buy of the IP at the end is quite a good idea.
Did you start with a contract template, or did you draft something from scratch?
So I started with a template and then worked loads of different stuff in. So my background, I was 15 years in accountancy, so I was quite used to dealing with, you know, employment law, things like that. So I did use good old ChatGPT for a little bit of it. And I also had one of my friends who's a HR manager to kind of look over, because, you know, she works with these sorts of things every day. So yeah, it was kind of a process. I think I wrote about 8 different contracts, and then I think of something else, and then I'd go and meet with my accountant and something else would come up. So yeah, it was definitely a process of doing it. Yeah,
there should be, just for the broader group, there should be templates online. I mean, it's effectively a fairly simple production services agreement for audio, of which there will be templates online. But as Becky said, ChatGPT is also a good resource. In the UK, there's like industry bodies, like I think they're called Audio UK, and, you know, they work with production companies and freelancers and support them on that type of thing. So it might be something that, you know, they can assist with as well. But there should be, starting points available online that you can edit for your needs as well.
I'd just like to flag that we have 10 minutes left. There were a couple of questions in the chat about hotels. and I would like to come to them, but first just open the floor if there are any other questions for Becky, because the hotel questions Tom and I can answer afterwards, but because you have your time here now. I know, Irene, you had a question? I don't know if you're still there. The question was, I'm interested in the wording for the initial contact or call. How do you actually start the conversation?
Gosh, I don't actually remember. I think I started it, you know, I'm a, God, I don't remember. I'm quite happy to share it. If I can remember. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Anything else, but I'm quite happy. I've got the email, so I'm quite happy to share that with you guys if you know if people wanted to see kind of how I worded it. I mean, I would say, you know, I got 1 out of 30, so it wasn't particularly you know, it didn't work particularly well. I have since sort of evolved, and you know, I think picking up the phone, if I'm quite honest, is going to get you more anything than an email.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I very much appreciate it, because that's very awkward. The initial communication is incredibly awkward. Hi, I'm such and such. I want to offer you something to sell. I'm a good I never know how to really start it.
Yeah, I was the same. I did use ChatGPT. You know, I kind of said, this is what I want to say, you know, and could you make me sound more professional? But I think that, you know, as storytellers, we're really personable. And actually, I had a mentor as well who really helped me. And she said, you need to actually pick up the phone and talk to people. She's like, I know it sounds awful and, you know, it's nerve-wracking, but actually just picking up the phone is, you know, it's more me. You know, these places get hundreds of emails trying to sell them stuff, from, you know, pens to tours. So, you know, there's so many emails that they get that, you know, we need to stand out. And actually, I think personally, one of the ways to stand out is to actually pick up the phone or go and see them.
But still, what you get someone on the phone, the opener. They are not interested to know who I am or if I'm selling something right away. So this is a very sort of interesting psychological thing where you want to be personal, yet they don't have time and they don't know who you are. So for me, the first introductory couple of sentences are crucial, and that's something that I'm struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, I've made myself very so everybody that I'm trying to contact already knows who I am, because I've literally been everywhere. I've been on LinkedIn, I've been to all these different places. So when people say, oh, you're Becky. So I've literally made myself so open in the local area that I don't think there's a single museum that hasn't been annoyed by me at some point, because I'm literally on their case all the time. So yeah, the open is always really difficult, and I think it just comes naturally. You know, when I don't write a script or anything for when I make phone calls, I do have a few notes sometimes on if there's a voicemail. So, you know, I've got a meeting with a local museum, a maritime museum. Looks like it's going to be next week now. You know, and I just managed to get hold of the visitor experience guy and just started having a chat, and we started talking about their feedback from their visitors and how their immersive content wasn't working. And I was like, well, funnily enough, I've got a solution for that. So it was like almost like leading a conversation towards they actually need this. So rather than sort of saying, I want to sell you this, I kind of led him to the conversation that he needs it.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. The difference between being local that everybody knows and New York City is that it's very hard. It's very hard to know. So that is a completely different thing. What I propose, I'm sure it's going to be a problem for a lot of people, or at least what I propose, why don't we on the forum, why don't we exchange ideas, how to introduce, why don't we just join forces and see what works, what doesn't, and work out some kind of a formula for at least opener. Then we can get personable and individual.
Definitely, yeah.
So I'm going to share in the chat, and I'll share it with you afterwards as well. I've created a sharing to business resource folder. That includes our pitch deck and some of the information that we know publishers has shared before. But I'll also create something on the forum where I'll post something on the forum and invite everyone so we can share some ideas.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky? I know, Annette, you had one, if you want to share that. Annette, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure which question you're talking about because I keep sending stuff through. I'll just observations in terms of the contract. I would strongly advise that you limit the number of rounds of edits that are allowed, because you can just go absolutely bananas with that sort of thing, because then they'll pass it to 7 different people and you get 7 different rounds of edits, and then it'll just keep, you go nuts.
One thing I learned through the whole process of the commissioning, from contract right through to when we published, was to have one point of contact. There was too many cooks at a lot of different times, and I had to sort of say to them, let's just talk to one person, so that you can I said to them, you can pass it around as many people as you want, but I'm only going to talk to the operations manager, because it just got overwhelming. And time wise, something that really should have taken 2 months ended up taking 4. So yeah, it was the contract edits that I did were before I showed anybody. So there were different things that would spark it. I'd go to bed, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd be like, oh, I need to add that in, making
Yeah, no, but it's just more working with the client. I think you can, and people will just want to show their muscle, and that's why that they won't necessarily contribute to anything. They just want their presence felt. So there was that. I just the final thing, which maybe Helene you're referring to, is about offering free samples. Is that what it is? What was the question you were referring to?
Yes, that was the one.
Yeah. So do you offer free samples in the pitch as part of your bona fides?
No, so I didn't originally. So obviously, if you go onto VoiceMap, because I had published tours on there anyway, they could hear what I sounded like, because you can preview the tours. So I did use that. But from what I've done now, so the 2 commissions that have kind of, I haven't solidified yet. So they've got 2 people that are interested because of the work that I did with the cathedral. And what I've done is I've sent them a voucher code. So yeah, I've sent them a free sample of the Truro Cathedral tour, so they can hear it from start to finish, the professionalism that runs through it, the local voice, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've definitely given out voucher codes to prospective clients. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Becky? Otherwise, I think we can go through 1 or 2 of the hotel questions.
You're off the hook, Becky.
Okay, Tom, would you mind, or do you want me to read a couple?
Yeah, you select them and I'll answer them.
Okay. So one of the questions was from Julia: if a hotel or other venue wish to commission a tour, does it mean it has to be exclusive to them only?
It's up to you and your agreement with the attraction or hotel. I think there's probably different answers if they're licensing and commissioning a tour. So licensing an existing tour, the tour as it remains will remain available to the public. There will be a customized version which starts at the hotel with a custom intro, which is free, and that is going to be a private tour. So that's only available to the hotel's guests. If they are if a hotel is commissioning a tour, it doesn't have to be private to them. It's really up to you and the terms that you agree with the hotel. Of course, it would be in your favor to, maybe it's free to the hotel guests, maybe it's that, but then you get to sell it publicly. That's an interesting model, and then you benefit from the license fee or the commissioning fee from the hotel, as well as potentially and the royalties that you receive for the sale. So we, from our perspective, we're open to either option. It's basically how you want to arrange things with the hotel yourself.
I'm just noting the time. I know we are almost on the hour. I'm going to ask Tom a couple more questions, so we'll stay for another 5 minutes and then we'll close the session. I just want to say thank you to everyone in the meantime who do need to go and for joining today. The next question, Tom, is how hotels are making revenue for the audio tour created for them. So they pay the creator and they pay VoiceMap. So what is the benefit to them actually then?
It's more of a differentiating factor. So it's not a revenue driver generally for hotels. We have a deal with Mandarin Oriental where they license a lot of our tours. So in some cases they created new tours, in other cases they license existing tours. In that case, they are made available for free to their guests as a value add. But Mandarin Oriental people are spending several $100s a night. So it's not really the type of environment where they could, charge someone an additional $10 or $20 for an audio tour. So it's available for free to their guests. It's generally available via the concierge. And I did note there was another question on who's best to speak to at a hotel. For larger hotels, it's going to be the concierge. They're the ones that are sort of interacting with guests and recommending things to do. If they can offer a free, audio tour, then that's great. For obviously, not every hotel has a concierge. Smaller hotels, you're probably best just dealing with the management directly. But yeah, to answer the original question, generally they're not revenue drivers for the hotel. They are a differentiating factor and something that they can offer as a free value add to their guests.
And then the next question is also from Elena. She's asked if hotels and museums specifically, do they prefer professional tour guides, or are they open to any type of tour creator?
I would have thought, obviously it's going to vary per hotel or attraction, but I would say, of course, the publishers we've got on this call come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some are professional tour guides, some are authors, podcasters, historians, or just, subject matter experts. And I'd say as long as you can prove that, you've created a good tour and you can do a good job, as all of you have, then like if I was at a hotel, I wouldn't be too concerned about accreditations, etc. So I think as long as you can go in there and show your worth and show your value and show what you've produced already, I would have thought that a hotel would be happy with that. I don't think they're necessarily going to look for specific accreditations.
Okay, great. There were 2 more questions. The one was from Michaela. Michaela, I think I'm going to post that for you about instructions to be shared with hotels and the payment process, and that is all in the folder that I shared. I will share that again. And then the final question is, can I find out somewhere where the hotels in my area already have licensed VoiceMap tours from another publisher?
Yeah, I would say we only have a small number of licenses to hotels at the moment. As I mentioned, Mandarin Oriental is the biggest group, but it's not something that's too numerous at the moment. Obviously, the purpose of this call is to change that and increase revenues for you guys by doing that. But at the moment, I don't see there's much of an opportunity for conflict if you were to reach out to local hotels outside that Mandarin Oriental group. So yeah, we have another example, like it's a bit more difficult for you to contact, but we have a group of Airbnbs. So it's just a small company that owns sort of 10 or 12 Airbnbs in London. They again wanted to offer it as something free to their guests, so they're licensing a London tour and making it available to their guests. So it's not just sort of big hotels, it might be owners of accommodation and maybe service departments, Airbnbs, that type of thing might present an additional opportunity.
Unless there are any questions from anyone else, I think we'll be happy to close the session there. From my side, thank you to Tom and to Becky. This is quite an insightful session today. We will share the recording as well as some insights later. I want to say later in the week, but maybe early next week. And then the suggestion to have a specific dedicated space on the forum where we can share, publishers can share ideas of how to approach businesses. I'll share that link with you as well. Tom, if you want to close us off.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, thanks again to Becky. It was really insightful. So thanks for your sharing your experience there. It's much better and informative coming from you than it is just from us. So really appreciate your time in sharing your experience with the group. So thanks again for that, and for everyone's joining, some really useful questions, and hopefully you found it informative. So thanks again, and yeah, if I'm sure you've got Helene's details, and I'm Tom at voicemap.me if you have any further questions.